In your writing section of your interactive notebook, the last section on page 1, you should have a list of all the prepositions that we were going to be studying. The first set is the only list that you're worried about memorizing right now for your quiz, but eventually you'll be memorizing all of them. So right now, make sure you have this list out in front of you as you look for prepositional phrases because we don't have these words memorized yet. But kind of look at them. We see that a lot of them are just short little words. They show locations: in, inside, near, off, out, outside, because that's what prepositions do. They show where things are in relation to other things. So looking at this paper, I want you to identify prepositional phrases, and I'm going to tell you where to look and how many you're going to find in each sentence. You are going to get out your highlighter and try to find them. The first sentence says, many people, like Mrs. Culleton, are afraid of bugs. In this sentence, there are two prepositional phrases. So you're looking for one of the words on this list that's followed by a noun, and it could have modifiers in between it. The first one is like. Like what? Like Mrs. Culleton. Mrs. Culleton's a noun, so that's a prepositional phrase, like Mrs. Culleton. We're left with the sentence, many people are afraid of bugs. The neat thing about prepositional phrases is you can take them out. If you can take them out of the sentence and it still makes sense, then it's not necessary and it can be a prepositional phrase. That's not going to always work when we work with dependent clauses and other kinds of phrases. Okay. The next one is of bugs. Of is a preposition, bugs is a noun, so of bugs is a prepositional phrase. They run from anything with 6 or 8 legs. There are two prepositional phrases in this sentence. The first preposition is from, so from anything is a prepositional phrase. The next one is with. Now this prepositional phrase is going to go a little bit further. We've got to find the noun. Normally what we're seeing so far is that it's just the preposition and the word right after it, but with 6 doesn't really make sense because I'm left wondering with 6 what? So with 6 or 8 legs. So I've got a lot of modifiers in here. My prepositional phrase is with 6 or 8 legs. True, some types of insects are deadly. There's one prepositional phrase in here, and it's a preposition that we've used in one of our other one of the other sentences up here. Of. Of scary, that doesn't sound right because scary isn't a thing. There's no such thing as a scary. But there are definitely things called insects. That's a noun. Of scary insects. Very few insects are actually harmful to people, though. In this sentence, we've got one preposition, and it actually looks like it could be an infinitive, so I would have to go back and review. When I say to, that should make me stop and think, is it followed by a noun, or is it followed by a verb? To people, people's a noun, so that's a prepositional phrase. Ant tunnels let air into the soil to help plant growth. We've got a prepositional phrase, and we've got another one that looks like a prepositional phrase. It's one of the things that makes prepositional phrases confusing. So let's start with the prepositional phrase. Into is a preposition. Into what? Into the soil. Soil is a noun. The is a modifier, so into the soil is a prepositional phrase. I see another one that looks like a preposition, to, but I know that it's followed by a verb. I can help somebody. To help, it's an action. So we're going to put brackets around it. And just to make it stand out a little bit more, I'm going to highlight it in a different color. But that's an infinitive because it's got a verb after it. Without insect predators, pests would devour farm crops. I've got one prepositional phrase in here. Go back to your list and see if you can find it. Without is the preposition. Without what? Without insect. Now that doesn't make sense the way it's used. Insect can be a noun, but the phrase without insect isn't enough. It's actually talking about an insect predator. Insect in this case is being used as a modifier. It's describing what kind of predator. Insect predators. So there's my prepositional phrase. Something else you might start to notice is when we use prepositional phrases at the beginning of a sentence, we have to have a comma after it. We hear the pause. Without insect predators, pests would devour farm crops. There's a pause there. It's not necessary. We can take it out. Pests would devour farm crops. So when we have a prepositional phrase at the beginning, then we have to put a comma at the end. Bees and butterflies carry pollen between plants to pollinate them. There are two things in this sentence that I want you to look for. The first one's a prepositional phrase. Between. Between is a preposition. Between what? Between plants. There's my prepositional phrase. Got another one of those words that looks like a preposition, but it's not, because it's followed by a verb. Pollinate. To pollinate. Remember what we call that? It's an infinitive. Plants cannot produce fruits and vegetables without their pollination. Looking for one prepositional phrase within here. Without. Without is a preposition. Without what? It's not without their. Their is a modifier. Their pollination. There's my prepositional phrase. Spiders destroy thousands of... Oops, I used the wrong color there. Like to be consistent. Spiders destroy thousands of flies and other insects. Got one prepositional phrase here. Of. Now here we come into something tricky again. We've got of flies, but I see a conjunction right after flies. That means there could be other things that it's of. If I'm not sure, I could read the sentence without what I think is the phrase. Spiders destroy thousands and other insects. If I take this prepositional phrase out, that sentence really doesn't make sense. And other insects isn't tied to anything at the beginning of the sentence. It's tied to of. Of flies and other insects. So that whole thing is my prepositional phrase. And in the last one, in our ecosystem, bugs are a prime link. Find the preposition and then find the prepositional phrase. In is the preposition, not in our. Our is showing ownership of something. It's used as a modifier. In our ecosystem. And I see another one of those prepositional phrases that's at the beginning of the sentence. So what do we have to remember to do with that when we're writing? We have to put a comma. Good job.